Hey guys, in this tutorial, I'm going to cover custom functions. Custom functions are a really handy way to organize your graphs, make sure it's very clean, very reusable, very modular. All right, so let's make a square, put it in the center of the screen, and let's add a flowScript controller component, and let's create a new bound graph. There we go. So in order to make a custom function, simply press space or right-click, then search for custom function, new custom function. You can also find it by going into functions, custom, new custom function. All right, so now we can click this node and we can change the identifier. So the identifier is basically the name of the function. It's what we're going to refer to it whenever we use it. And this should be a very clear, easy to understand name, so we don't have to add comments to explain what it does. So in this case, I'm going to say log time since application started. There we go. And inside here, I'm going to create a log text. Then I'm going to get the time.time. Then I'm just going to create a constant string here, which is going to be time since level started. And I want to add this. So I'm going to say, drag that out, string, methods, concat. So we're going to concatenate the time next to this, then drag that into here, put that in there. And then to finish a function off, you should always add a return. If you don't add a return, then after the function is called, it will not continue. And I'll show you this later, just to show you how that works, because this can be very easy to forget, but it's very important to understand that you do need to have the return, even if you're not returning any value, like in this case. All right, so now we have the function, and we just need to call it. So what's really cool is that you can press space or right click and you can actually just search for the name of it. So log time, there you go. Functions, it finds all the functions that exist within this graph and you can very easily click it and there you go. And you get a nice little line that shows that when this is called, it's going to redirect here, do all this logic, and then when it returns, it's going to come straight out of here. So let's hook it up to an event. So we're going to choose keyboard key. When we press space, we're going to call that function. All right, it's not a very exciting function, but let's just test to make sure it works. Okay, there you go. Pretty straightforward. All right, so now let's make a function that allows us to pass in a parameter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new function, and this is going to be called change color. Then I'm going to drag the sprite renderer in. I'm going to choose properties, set the color, like that. Connect that in. And so for color, we're just going to set it to be this nice color here. Then, again, when we press the space, we're going to call change color. There it is. But this time, so this color here, right now it's baked into the function. But what if I wanted to change it to this blue color when I press space, and when I press a different key, let's say return, I want to change it to be like pink or something. So it's pretty straightforward. You choose your function node and you can click add parameter. And in this case, we're adding a color parameter. There we go, color. Connect that into the value. And then here, set it to that blue color, blue-green color, and here to this pink color. So now we're actually calling that function in two different places with different parameters, and let's see how that goes. So space, and it goes that nice color, and return, and it goes to the pink color. And one of the really good things about it is that if I have this, let's say right now I've only used it twice, but Potentially, I could have used this in a lot of different areas, maybe 10 or 12 different times. And suddenly I decide that I don't want to set the color immediately, but I would prefer to set the color over time. I prefer to interpolate from one color to the other. So by using functions, this becomes very easy. All I need to do is update the logic inside the function, and everywhere where I have used it before will be updated automatically, because again, it's just replacing this node with the behavior that's inside here without us having to rewrite it every time. All right, so let's have a look at this. What we want to do is we want to interpolate lerp color. And what I'm going to use here is I'm actually just going to use the current color. So get color there. So I want to interpolate it from the current color to our new color, which is our parameter here. Put that into there. And now what I need to do is find a way to update this. All right, with FlowCanvas, this is actually pretty straightforward. We can just use a weight. There we go. Make this a constant so it's nice and big. And let's say we want it to change over 1 second, so that's fine. Connect that in there. And on update, we're going to set the color like that. And when we finish, we're going to return like that. That marks the end of what that function is doing. So what's cool is that that return will not actually get called until this is all finished, which means that if I had these duplicated like this in sequence, this would finish completely before this happens, which is really powerful. All right, and now actually, when we do this, because it goes backwards, we're getting the current color and we're lerping from the current color to this, which is going to give us some strange results. So what we actually want to do is cache this. So let's just use a flow parameter. So we're going to write a flow parameter type color. I'm going to call this starting color. Put that in there like that. And the starting color is going to be written there. Then we're going to read that flow parameter over here. So put that in there and now connect that color up there. Make sure that we're using this, so starting color. Okay, let's make it a constant so we don't make any mistakes. There we go. And then go out of there like that to the set color. And now we can change the duration. So maybe let's make this one take 3 seconds and the next one take 10 seconds. So I press space and you can see it going quite slowly to that color. And we can see the graph up here. Let me hide the Blackboard variables. If I press enter, there we go. And that's just going to keep going through that. And you'll see it will hit this return when it has reached the end of that time, which should be about now. There you go. You saw it go there. All right. So with that in mind, let's show the other cool thing. So let me copy paste this and we're going to change our color 3 times. Let's make the speed a lot faster, the duration a lot shorter. So 1 second, maybe 2 seconds in the middle. And at the end, back to 1 second, and just make sure that we have some different colors. So let's make it green, and let's make it maybe, yeah, this magenta color here when we press space. There we go. So it changes really nicely in order. So when you have nodes so cleanly like this in sequence, it makes reading the flow and creating flows so easy and intuitive. In code, doing something like this can often become messy, requiring the use of coroutines or link in a lot of callbacks, which can be really hard to read, really hard to upkeep. And so this is one really great thing about FlowCanvas, is that it just really naturally works with functions like this. All right, and remember what I said before about remembering to have the return? If I get rid of the return, this is what happens. You see it gets stuck here. Because it doesn't return, it never exits this port and it never goes to the next one. So it's really important to remember, even if you don't have a return type, that you should always return. All right, and speaking of return, let's see how return works when we return a value from a function. So I'm going to create a new custom function, spacebar, custom function, and I'm going to call it get random color. So this function is going to just return a random color. So here we have a return type. So I can choose return type. In this case, I'm going to return a color. So I put a color there. Then I will create the return node. There we go. So we're going to start here. We're going to enter here. We're going to do some logic to get the random color. And then we're going to output what we managed to get here and make sure we call this flow input port. All right, and so to get a random color, I'm going to do new color. I'm going to make sure that the alpha is always going to be 1. Then for each of these, it's going to be a value from 0 to 1. So I will get a random range between 0 and 1. There we go. So even though I've plugged this value into all 3 of these, this actually gets calculated once per value. So when it gets this value, this color, which we're going to put into the return, when it gets this, it goes back and it says, oh, what's my red channel? Random.range, boom. What's my green? Random.range, boom. What's my blue? Random.range, boom, right in there. So even though it looks strange, this is actually correct. All right, we put that there. Let's duplicate this keyboard key event, change it to be return, copy paste this, call change color, and we want to call get random color. So we simply press space, type in get random color. There it is. Plug it in, and you see our node is being dynamically created to have that return value right there, very cleanly. So we do that. And now when I press enter, it has chosen some random colors. All right, now I'm going to show you how to call a function on another flowScript, not the one that we're currently on, but let's say we have another object here. Like let's say we have a circle here, and let's say our circle has a flowScript. So let's add a flowScript, make it bound, keyboard key, backspace. All right, and what I want to do is when I press backspace, I want to change the color of this square. So what you can do is you can grab the square, pull it into the graph, choose flowScript controller, methods, and call function with the parameters like this. Now, if I go into the square, I can copy that name. So let's say change color. I can add the name there. Expose parameters. This means that we can use the parameters here rather than having them inside here. So we expose the parameters. We can choose how many. In our case, we only have 2. We have the color as the first argument and the duration as the second argument. So let me add a color. Right click, change generic type to color. Make it this kind of purple color or violet color. And for the second argument, again, we'll put a constant variable in here, change it to be a float, and let's make it take 2 seconds. All right, connect this in. Now, sometimes you'll see it doesn't have a place to connect. In this case, you just need to click callable, and that will add these little in and out flow ports. So I'll connect that up and all good. So now if I play and I press delete, even though I'm in the circle flow script, it's actually calling that function on the square. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that you cannot chain these in the same way. When you call a function in this way, it will immediately finish. And so as soon as you've called it, this port will go out. I can show you like this. If I log some text, finished, you'll see when I press backspace, it says finished, even though this function itself has not finished. So this is a limitation that you have to bear in mind when working with functions in this way. But regardless, it can be quite powerful to be able to access functions on other objects in this way. Now, there are actually better ways to do this, and I'll be covering those in future videos. Another cool thing about custom functions is that you can call them via scripts. So let's just create a basic script here. So let's say I'll create a script on Square. I'll call it Square Controller. All right, so first of all, let's create a public flowScript controller field like that. And on update, if input.get key down key code dot, and let's use Q, delete that. Then I can do flowScript controller dot call function, and this is going to be our change color. And then we can pass in, for example, color.cyan, and for duration 3 seconds. All right, so that's basic way to call it. Let's have a look. So here we'll just assign that flowScript controller, press play, press Q, and there we go. We've called it from the script into the flowScript controller. So that's pretty powerful because you can have half of your code base in code and the other half in flowScripts and have them communicate cleanly or nicely between each other. Now, there is also call function async. What this allows you to do is add a callback. So let's just say debug.log finished. So now what will happen is that when I press Q, it's going to do all of this. And when that's done, I get that log. So that's really great. I can basically tell my flow graphs to do something in code and get a nice event later, which I can use to do whatever I want. So hopefully this helped you get a better grasp on how to use functions inside FlowCanvas. And hopefully you can make something cool with the stuff that you've learned.